Welcome to Front Office Pros. If you're like me, you're out of the playoffs, and now it's time to look into your dynasty teams and what you're going to do in the offseason. Well, Joe and I are here to talk about some trade targets that you should be looking into heading into next season.
Hike!
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Steve. I still am in the fantasy playoffs in one league, but most of my leagues I'm out. So definitely looking towards the future here and what moves I can make to better my dynasty team, heading into this next year for sure. And, one player I'd be buying right now would be running back De'Von Achane. Obviously, the Dolphins running back situation has got some older guys heading the way with Raheem Mostert. Jeff Wilson's also there. And De'Von Achane, is an explosive player. I think, durability is a concern, but outside of that, he's shown his explosiveness. He was the guy I really liked to watch in college, and just that explosiveness and his ability to break tackles, even though he was a smaller guy, really impressed me. And we've even seen the Dolphins utilize him in the goal line situations. So that hasn't even really been a concern either, with having to deal with another running back faltering his touchdowns, essentially, if he does get it all the way down there. But, I think there is a situation, where I've got, a guy like Christian McCaffrey on my team, going to be heading into a rebuild here. I think it could make sense if you got kind of an older back like that. Look to trade him away and go with a young guy like De'Von Achane and get De'Von Achane plus. I think you possibly get like a second round pick as well.
And I think that could definitely be a deal that you would be eyeing next season, in the offseason, to get yourself in a better place with your roster, because we have a salary cap as well that you've got to, finagle. But, I got to give you credit, Joe. You could definitely have roasted me on this one. My rule of a player being below 5'8", that was like an off limits for me. And I give you props. You were on Achane since the beginning. You saw this guy had the speed and the explosiveness. It was a match, made, for anybody with when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. This was just a perfect fit. And I did think that was the case, but I just didn't think I thought he'd get nicked up, and he has some, but he's been able to do really well. So can hear what you're saying there. Mostert has got a 2-year deal. So he'll have 1 year left next year. He'll be 32 years old, though. So there's no guarantee he can stay healthy or he's going to continue on his pace. I mean, right now, doesn't he have something like 20 total touchdowns this year? I mean, it's just craziness.
Yeah, he does. He just I want to say he either tied or set the Miami Dolphins rushing touchdown record today with his 20th. Which is impressive. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. De'Von Achane going to the Miami Dolphins. I mean, it was a match made in heaven. I mean, this is a track meet offense with just full of explosive players. Waddle, Tyreek Hill, all fast. And, even Mostert was that type of track meet guy, back in his prime days with the 49ers. And, Mike McDaniel knows how to use a guy like that. And Achane, rest of the season and into the future here is going to be good.
So one of my trade targets I'm going to tell you to go for is wide receiver George Pickens. Now, Joe, you already told me you don't know why I'm picking this player. Here's the thing. He was a player I was targeting at the beginning of the year as a breakout player. That obviously hasn't happened. I think a part of the reason for this was due to the combination of Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett, although I find it kind of ironic that their offense has actually regressed even worse. I don't know how you could get worse than that. But nevertheless, this feels very reminiscent to me of what happened to Chase Claypool as he started to become a distraction in the locker room. I think it's reached a boiling point with George Pickens. I mean, that it was pretty bad. Jaylen Warren, he just literally let him get tackled right before the end zone line and really had no effort at all in blocking. I think that the Steelers have a certain way. There's a Steeler way of playing football, and I think that Pickens, I'm pretty positive that he will get traded this offseason. I think the talent is too great to give up on him, though, as a dynasty owner. I know you would call him a diva, and to a degree, I can understand he's pouting on the sideline, not getting the ball. But I think it's more so that he's just checked out on the Steelers team, and to some degree, I'm not excusing his behavior, but I can also understand that offense is very frustrating. It's probably one of the most inefficient, unproductive offenses in the entire NFL. So, as a player of his stature, he wants to make a name for himself. He wants to be able to make plays, and he just can't even get balls that are catchable. So, he basically has had identical seasons. In his rookie year, he had around 52 catches, 800 plus receiving yards, had 4 touchdowns. His rookie year, he has 3 right now. So, I would trade for this guy. I'm going to take the risk just based on the talent, and based on the trade value chart, based on draft sharks that we've been looking at here. I would be willing to trade the likes of Jahan Dotson, Josh Downs. I'd be willing to trade Deontay Johnson and his counterpart, DeAndre Hopkins, Jonathan Mingo, Quentin Johnston, Tyler Lockett. So those are a couple of names I'd be willing to dish away to be able to go take a gamble on Pickens.
Yeah, you just love this guy, but you like these guys that get those, long plays potentially. It's so interesting. With running backs, you like the guys that just get 2 yards in a cloud of dust, but they get, over 20 carries. With the wide receivers, you like the big, all or nothing shots. He's a Mike Williams type of player, but he actually stays on the field and is healthy. But yeah, I think it's going to be tough though for NFL teams because this guy is a diva. I don't know why anyone just doesn't give him a Snickers bar by now, but he definitely is a diva and he hasn't been satisfied. And I don't know if somebody else brings him in, he could just be a complete menace to your locker room. It's going to have to be an organization, maybe like the Patriots, that kind of know
Patriots.
Well, just an organization like that that's got the structure and can
maybe if Brady was still there,
take any personality like that. It's just a structurally sound organization that has a good locker room that could handle somebody like that and make it make sense. But Pickens also doesn't do himself a lot of favors. He should have had a touchdown earlier this year, but he couldn't even get his 2 feet in when he had clearly a lot of space. I don't know. I think he could be more trouble than he's worth to take on.
So am I hearing that you'd sell him as an owner?
Oh yeah, I would sell him. He shows flashes, and I think that's the frustrating part. It's very tantalizing, but the problem, Martavis Bryant also had those flashes. I know he had substance abuse policy issues, and that's a different subject, but he was also a talker and a problem, and the Steelers just got rid of him. And not to say Pickens is the same guy, but he could be on that track.
But Deontay is a problem too.
But you say the Steelers' offense is so bad and so inefficient, but yet Deontay Johnson has been fine and performs for fantasy. But I do think it's interesting, though. You mentioned the inefficiency since Matt Canada was fired. We only got to see one game with Kenny Pickett without Matt Canada, and it was actually his best game. We just haven't been able to see him since because of injury, and we've been stuck with watching Trubisky and Mason Rudolph for 2 minutes. That was just awful.
So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store.
So my next player that I'd be looking to acquire, Steve, is probably not a popular opinion, but that's why I think he's an interesting trade target, and I think he's somebody that you could get for a value, and that's going to be wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Now, I don't know if the Broncos are going to honestly keep him, move him. I do think, regardless, I think I'm interested in him either way. Even if he stays with Denver, I think Sean Payton has kind of figured out how to get him open and get these routes going. And simply, he's been getting open a lot of the year, but Russell Wilson just hasn't been able to find him. He's really only got eyes for Cortland Sutton. That did change a little bit. This past game, he did have 7 targets. They got him involved right away on a 40-yard pass play to start off the game against the Lions. So that, that is encouraging, and those explosive plays are there for Jerry Jeudy. That's why, I think Russell Wilson's potentially going to be gone after this year. It just makes sense from a contract standpoint for the Broncos to move off him. Don't think Russ is Peyton's guy. I do think there's going to be a new quarterback, so maybe that new quarterback is actually able to find a wide open Jerry Jeudy where Russell Wilson just continually is missing him at this point. But even if he goes go to a new team, I think it's been a while since the Broncos have had to learn how to figure out how to use Jerry Jeudy. They've never really had a solid plan for this guy, but I do think he is talented. And I think maybe if he has a change of scenery, a new coach, maybe with some other pieces around him, maybe he does better somewhere else. But I mean, where his value is at, you mentioned your guy, George Pickens, Steve, is right in and around that area. I'd rather take the flyer on Jerry Jeudy, a guy who's not going to be that locker room issue. And I think a change of scenery could benefit him. But even like a Christian Kirk, aging Keenan Allen, you mentioned Deontay Johnson as well. Terry McLaurin, I think those are some wide receivers I'd be looking to trade away for Jeudy.
Keenan Allen's an interesting one because the Chargers cap situation is bad news, and they're going to have a new coach and a new GM. I know, obviously, Keenan probably want to retire a Charger, and he's got a great rapport with Justin Herbert. I just don't know. We know the cap is movable, it's malleable. They'll change it around. I just don't know if they'll be able to keep him. I really don't.
Yeah, I think it definitely will be tough for them to keep him, but it's going to be an interesting situation. I mean, they're still going to need somebody to kind of be the centerpiece of that offense. Quentin Johnston hasn't really showed that he could be that guy. Mike Williams, he's always hurt, is right now. So I don't know. Yeah, that whole Chargers situation is going to be really interesting to see, who takes over as coach, who they bring in as a GM, and what they're going to do.
Yeah, but going back to Jeudy, here's the thing. He'll be playing on his 5th-year option next year. So, Broncos are on the hook for quite a lot of money. You're looking at almost $13 million in guaranteed money. Right? There's no way for them to be able to get out of that. So would a team be willing to acquire that? They're going to have to eat it, like the Browns did so long ago with Baker Mayfield when he was on the 5th-year option. They ate some of that money. So Broncos are going to have to eat it if they're going to try to trade him. It's possible. And because of that, they may maybe get a third out of it. I don't know how much they could really get out of it because of the situation where, it depends on how much they're willing to eat. I think that he is a talented player, and I do agree with you that I don't know the Broncos have known how to use him. And so that is your argument to say if he goes somewhere else, he could do really well, or Broncos bring in a different quarterback. But that's where I guess I push back a little bit. It's like, maybe they get rid of Russ, but then who are they replacing him with? Broncos are, unless they're going to trade up in the draft, I don't think they're going to necessarily have a quarterback available to draft. And then who's out there as a free agent? I mean, maybe Kirk Cousins? You're hoping Kirk Cousins comes to the Broncos?
I mean, it'd be interesting. I haven't thought about that, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know who's going to be Sean Payton's guy. I definitely think that, he's going to – Broncos need somebody who's not going to drop their eyes from downfield and stare at the rush. And, Russell Wilson does make some great plays every now and then, but sometimes it's like, dude, can you just stay in the pocket, go through some reads and hit somebody? I don't know who it could be. I mean, they could also take a flyer, mid-range quarterback, somebody like J.J. McCarthy. I don't know, sir. Somebody else we'll see. Who's
oh, boy.
There's
the Michigan Wolverine talking. Oh, brother.
Hey, I mean, it could be possible. You never know. I don't think McCarthy's going top 10.
So my other trade target here is wide receiver Rashad Bateman. I was hoping that he'd stay under the radar a little bit, but based on this week's performance, that may not be able to happen. He had 3 catches for 39 yards on 6 total targets. And I understand these aren't great numbers by any means. However, I really like Bateman's potential going forward. Bateman's in his 3rd season, and as far as his career goes, the most amount of games he's ever played is 12 games in a season. He's had the injury bug. He's dealt with a groin injury. He's dealt with a Liz Frank injury that he got surgery on. Former first-round pick out of Minnesota. I really liked him coming out of college. I just don't think that the Baltimore Ravens are just not really a pass-friendly offense. He's scheduled to be a free agent the following season, and I think he's the type of player that could really benefit from a change of scenery. Here's the biggie, Joe. This is what you've been waiting for. According to Pro Football Focus, I saw this chart on Twitter and it caught my eye. the raw PFF separation grade, surprisingly, Rashad Bateman is creating the most amount of separation than any other wide receiver in the NFL. So no other wide receiver is
How is
doing a
that possible?
better
More than
job
Tyreek Hill?
yeah. According to PFF,
That makes no sense.
I'm telling you, he's creating the most amount of separation. He just isn't getting the opportunities. So for me, Bateman, his value is in the absolute tanker. We're talking about trading the likes of Tutu Atwell, or Elijah Moore, or Treylon Burks. So to me, I'm going to take a flyer on this guy, Joe. I would go after him because I think once he becomes a free agent, I think it could be a good spot for him to go somewhere else. So I liked him out of college. I just think that Baltimore isn't a great place for him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Baltimore hasn't been the best place for him, but I don't know. I don't see it, but it's interesting. Your PFF stuff was interesting. I was wondering what your argument for him was going to be. I do think, I think him and Jeudy are similar. I think they're just not getting utilized in the offense, but are guys who are getting open and have some talent, and especially if you get them in some open space and get the ball in their hands. But yeah, I don't know. First, when you brought up Bateman, I thought he was going to have a spectacular stat line, but I mean, 339 didn't blow me away. So I was like, what are we doing here?
Well, I just think it's one of those things, right? We're talking about dynasty trade targets heading into the upcoming offseason, right? All the three players we just talked about, Pickens, Bateman, and then Jeudy, all of these three guys are guys that if that owner who owns them is probably not very high in them and would be willing to sell them, maybe just for draft capital alone. So I think, it is supposed to be a good wide receiver class, so maybe I'd want to hold on to the draft capital. But I'm just saying that, these are the type of players that you kick the tires on. Hopefully they turn it around. They could not, and Bateman hasn't showed a lot. But if you own Bateman, you're probably likely to be willing to trade him.
Yeah, I mean, out of the people you said there, I would rather honestly have Treylon Burks than Rashad Bateman. Burks has been getting the looks from Will Levis down the field, and that's kind of the player he's been. And I trust the bigger bodied, guy to make those contested catches on the jump balls than a smaller guy like Bateman.
So those were 4 dynasty trade targets to be focused on heading into the upcoming offseason. We'll be back next week to go through a few more. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.